Hello, I wanted to share with you today a little bit of the science behind nature connection and the physical and mental well-being benefits of nature. So we're really talking about two components to this. One part is simply contact with nature, and the other part is nature connectedness. So contact with nature is really just when you go out, walk the dog, not really paying attention to the nature, you're just in a natural space, you're seeing trees, you're hearing birds, but you're not necessarily aware of them. And then nature connectedness involves, the University of Derby particularly have done a lot of work on this and have identified these 5 pathways, which are sort of contact through your senses and what have you. It's beauty, meaning, emotion and compassion. They may have labelled those slightly differently, but that's the way that I remember them. So it's really things like your sense of awe and wonder. It's kind of connecting with sort of natural navigation signs maybe, or the sort of clues and signs in nature, or with metaphor. It's doing things like art or creative activities like photography. And it's giving service back to nature. It's doing things like maybe litter picking or sort of conservation activities like sort of clearing scrub or whatever particular sort of conservation activities people might get involved in. So that's those are routes to increasing your nature connectedness. And in terms of the physical and mental health benefits, there are some from both, but there are some enhanced benefits from nature connectedness. So when you're doing the guided practices like we do with the at Dragon Mindfulness and Nature Connection, those are intended to enhance this nature connectedness. So you're getting a kind of added boost to the already many benefits from just simple contact with nature. So this video is really just distilling some of those sort of gems from the scientists and experts. I would advise you, if you are really interested in knowing more about this, and it's very interesting, to go directly to those sources and dig a bit deeper. So that's the University of Derby, and they have an online course, a free online course, which goes into a lot of the science and explains a lot of these concepts, probably far better than I can. And also I like this book, The Nature Fix by Florence Williams. There's a lot of great stuff in there. That tends to be more about the contact with nature. And also Emma Mitchell, who has been on the Self-Isolating Bird Club. So that's YouTube videos you can find online. And she's also written The Wild Remedy, and she talks a lot about the effect on these brain chemicals of various aspects of nature. So, and she posts lots of lovely images and crafty bits, which are fantastic. And yes, one of the things is that it has been shown that even by looking at images of nature or listening to birdsong, we get some of these lovely benefits for our physical and mental well-being. So some examples of things that you might benefit from in terms of contact with nature. So even by doing your gardening, you can increase your serotonin levels. And this was discovered by the University of Bristol, I believe. Not necessarily discovered by them, but they've done some work with cancer patients. They were looking at a particular bacteria, this Mycobacterium vaccae. And I think with the intention of discovering whether it improved outcomes in terms of people's cancer. And unfortunately, they didn't discover any benefit in terms of recovery from cancer. But what they did discover was that it improved the quality of life for cancer patients. And the reason behind this is increased serotonin levels. So this is a brain chemical. It's a chemical that your brain has to make. And so effectively the soil, this bacterium, acts like certain antidepressant drugs So it's making people feel mentally better. So serotonin has a role in mood and emotions, appetite and digestion, and it's also a precursor for melatonin, which is involved in sleep regulation. So just from contact with soil, whether that's through gardening or general nature connection, or eating vegetables and things, root vegetables that have soil on them, you're coming into contact with something which will boost your serotonin levels and help with your mental well-being. Then trees and some plants give off these chemicals called phytoncides, and phytoncides are the chemicals they use in aromatherapy. Basically, the trees and plants are protecting themselves from pests. And sort of any kind of insects and so on that might attack the tree. But what they found is that these chemicals, when we're inhaling them, increase our own natural killer cells, and these do have a role in warding off cancer. They also have a role in our immune system. They're a type of white blood cell that stress and aging and pesticides can actually reduce. But by being around trees or around these aromatherapy oils, we can increase our numbers of natural killer cells and give our immune systems a boost. So yes, that's a couple of examples of where contact with nature has a benefit, both a physical and mental benefit to us. So beyond that, we have the nature connectedness aspect, and here they've really noticed some effects in people's sense of well-being. So both the sort of general kind of happiness and so on, but also things which are more associated with our kind of emotional resilience and our sense of sort of life purpose and so on. So our sort of two types of mental well-being. And although it's difficult to kind of establish causal relationships, so to say that if you're more connected with nature, then you will get these benefits, there is definitely a link. So it's quite hard to establish for lots of these things the direction of that relationship, but certainly it appears to be that doing sort of nature connectedness activities increases both our general physical mental well-being, but also it increases pro-environmental behaviours, and there's a connection with pro-conservation behaviours as well. So it's not just good for us, it's good for the planet, and I guess that makes sense anyway, because what we care about we protect, and by connecting with it we're building this sense of care and empathy. So it's really useful that there's some science to back that sort of experience up, so we're not just going from our own subjective experience. And just to finish with a pretty powerful fact, the research that the University of Derby reported on their course suggested that nature connectedness and this sort of feeling that life's worthwhile and has purpose, that connection was 4 times higher than the increase that they saw from sort of socioeconomic status, so how much money you have. So it really indicated that by going through nature connectedness activities, you could increase your sense of this kind of having a worthwhile life really significantly, over and above having money and, and so on. They also found that it predicted, so nature connectedness predicted not having anxiety and depression. Now, it doesn't mean to say that there aren't people who have anxiety and depression who have a strong connection with nature, but it means that there are clear signs that people who are connected with nature have less depression and anxiety. So that was a really good result. And the other aspect of that was that their findings were that just spending time in nature didn't have anything like a significant effect on those conditions. So I really hope that's given you just a very brief overview of some of the key science. There's a lot more, and it's obviously developing all the time. It's so important that people are researching this and understanding really why we need to be connected to nature for our own well-being. And from there, we actually also understand why it's also important to nature for us to be connected in this way. So I hope that a few of you will be encouraged to go off and look at those sources for yourself.